Shalom and welcome to another edition of Parasha Talk. I'm Rabbi Elliot Malamet in Highland Park, New Jersey, at the Highland Park Conservative Temple Congregation on Shemet. And joining me are my good friends, Rabbi Barry Chesler of Solomon Schechter Day School of Long Island and Rabbi Jeremy Kalmanovsky, Anshe Chesed in New York City.
This is Barry, I like that little zoom in. How did you do that?
It's something new with the Zoom. I don't know.
I don't know how to do that.
This is our first Parsha Talk in a couple of years where we don't say anything about a hostage. Last week we marked the end of that chapter. Let's hope that we are now in a new phase, and so we can say a big shout out. Today is February 4th. It is Yaakov Malamet's 32nd birthday. Mazel tov to Yaakov Malamet, my son.
Yom Haledet Sameach.
Yes, Yom Haledet Sameach. And to all those out there, the probability would be that maybe there are a couple of other people who have the same birthday, or are nearby. Anybody who's having a birthday this week, Mazel Tov to you.
And by the way, let's just say, by the way, 32.
32.
What a great year. 30. It's Lev, Gematria Lev. What's the first letter in the Torah?
Very good. Bereshit Bet Lamed. Very good.
So this is a Kabbalistic commonplace that there are 10 digits and 22 letters is the 32 Nitivot Chokhmah, the 32 paths of wisdom in the Kabbalistic and it's the first and last letters of the Torah, and it's the human heart as well.
How about that? Well, and speaking of the human heart, we observed 10 years of Kim's transplant a couple of weeks ago, so that's 10th anniversary. Wonderful. Wow. We are talking about Parasha Yitro today. Well, I say this every Parsha. This is the most important Parsha in the Torah. It would be among the most important.
This week it certainly is.
It would be included in the top 10 for the top 10 reasons. Although, it's the Ten Commandments. I have here, I'm sorry, we didn't talk about this, but I have a New Yorker cartoon. I wanted to share this with our, it's called The 10 Passive-Aggressive Commandments. 1, you know what would really be great? 2, it's a really stupid idea. 3, only if it's convenient. 4, feel free to ignore. 5, I just thought, but. 6, actually, never mind. 7, don't worry about it. 8, it doesn't matter. 9, I already said, never mind. 10, forget I asked. The 10 passive-aggressive commandments, okay?
Is that Ross Chast?
This is, no, I think so. Yeah. You have to identify the very ineligible signature there. Okay. Look, I want to kind of get us into the story. We're at Mount Sinai. And my proposition to lead off this conversation is that in the Jewish imagination, we have a certain picture of this moment, and the text actually may be different from what we have in our imagination. Midrash and depiction of this moment make it into this unbelievable moment of union, of God coming together with the people of Israel. But my proposition to you both is that it doesn't go according to plan. In fact, the plan that God has for this moment gets wrecked, and it gets wrecked by fear, and we see that in the text. So I want to walk through the text of chapter 19 with you. We're going to leave aside the preliminary of chapter 19, which goes to from verses 1 to 8, but picking up at verse 9, chapter 19, verse 9. God says to Moses, Moshe, Hine anochi ba'elecha. I'm coming to you, ba'av ha'anan, in a cloud, thick cloud, bavur yishma medabri yimach, so that the people will hear when I talk to you, v'gam b'chaya aminu lama, and they're going to trust you now. V'yaged Moshe et divrei ha'am el Adonai, and God Moses transmitted what the people said to God. So God then says, "Vayomer Adonai Moshe, Lech el ha'am, go to the people, v'kidashtam hayom u'machar." We're going to get them sanctified today and tomorrow, v'chipsusim lotam, and get them to wash their clothes. Okay, we're going to pause here. Why does God want Moses to tell the people to sanctify themselves and to wash their clothes? Why? Because they're dirty. It's a simple answer. No, maybe it's not. Look, what does washing do? I mean, and what's the ritual and anthropological significance of washing? It's to be ready, right?
Yeah. I mean, we talked about this before we started recording, that the one place, in the whole rabbinical, I guess, biblical system, but as the rabbis understand the biblical system of Tumah and Tahara, ritual purity and ritual impurity, it doesn't mean that you can't be in your house when impure. It means you can't be in the temple when you're impure. You can't be in the place where you meet God when you're impure. And it's key. Again, I'm now reading through the rabbis and reading the entire biblical collection, including Deuteronomy, which is the book that has the strongest sense of the sanctity of the Beit Hamikdash and the sacred the sacred place. It's that when you encounter God, you need to be in the status of ritual purity, and that's what's happening here too. And you will explain to us, the good parts, but the people are not ready if they are just in any old way. They have to be at their best. Now, modern people don't have to feel that the specific details of the rules of Tumah and Tahara, what the specific bodily emissions or the specific contacts with dead animals, dead bodies. Those are the things that make you at your best or at your worst. But it's clearly that that's what the Bible thinks. Makes you at your most prepared, most refined, most ready is to be ritually pure.
What's so interesting about this is that it's actually a primitive stage of these laws, right? They don't have we don't know what kind of water there was at Mount Sinai, and we don't know. They certainly didn't have a mikveh there. They didn't go out and build a mikveh there. But is there running water there? Who knows? The idea that you have to say, we've just been on a 3-day on a trek. Our lives have just been saved from Egypt. We just got through our feet are still muddy from the Red Sea or the Sea of Reeds. Let's take a bath. We'll get a bath.
We actually have a clue to what kind of water it is from chapter 3.
Okay. Yes.
It's well water.
Well water. Okay. So
because Moses helps water the flocks of Yitro's daughters at the well.
Very good.
And this is in the vicinity of the thorn bush, which is connected to Mount Sinai.
And later on at the golden calf episode, they take the golden calf, they pulverize it, and they put it in the streams of water at the mountain. Okay. Right. And we'll hold that thought for a second. So they're supposed to get washed. Day 1, day 2. Let's say, it's a 3-day project. The revelation at Sinai is going to be on day 3, and day 1 and 2, you get to be prepared. Okay, you get to prepare. Verse 11. Get ready for Tuesday. Get ready for day 3. On the 3rd day, God's going to come down on the 3rd day. Perfect. Okay. You're going to make a boundary around the mountain, saying, don't anybody go up this mountain during these 2 days. Anybody who touches the mountain is going to die. Okay, we'll talk about it in a second. And if there was a person who went there, don't even touch that person. They're contaminated. You have to stone them. You have to shoot them. If they're an animal, if they're a human being, lo yichye, they're not going to live. And then the critical moment.
I just want to just throw one little message. I don't think you have to shoot them. I think it is God will shoot them. Is passive verbs.
Okay. They're not going to live.
That they will get zapped.
God.
Well, they say that death is a passive form of life, so that fits in.
Here, the last 5 words of verse 13, engrave them on a piece of marble. Bimshoch hayovel Hema yalu v'har. When the horn sounds, that's when they can come up. So my proposition to you is the plan was that the people were supposed to go up the mountain. And they were supposed to be preparing 2 days because it takes 2 days to launder thousands of people in water, get them 2 days, and then on the third day, a big tekiah gedola, or whatever it was, the shofar is sounded, and that's the moment, at the moment the shofar sounds, everybody is going to come into the convocation, and the convocation is going to be on the mountain. Now, in my imagination, I have a mountain, let's say it's like a conical mountain, okay? And the people ascend the mountain. They come and they take places on the mountain. And the mountain is now one complete sacred zone. On top of the mountain is God in a cloud. At the bottom of the sacred mountain are the people surrounded, and Moses is in the cloud, and everybody is going to hear what God says while they're in the zone. They're in, like, literally in the zone, okay? And they're supposed to be in the zone when they hear it, and to me it makes perfect sense. The most perfect moment where God meets human beings is supposed to take place in a holy, sacred place. And that's why they're supposed to go. And that's why you're to prevent them from going there for 2 days until everybody is sanctified and ready. So you're keeping the zone kind of sterile. It's in what's the term in the army? Shetach tzvai sagur, a sterile zone, or in a operating suite, right? If you go into if you're in surgery, we did this in rabbinical school. I don't know if you had to do this, but as part of the pastoral care, we watched cardiac surgery, and they suited us up, and they said, if you put your gloved hand touches your nose, you're out of there, right? You're
Wait,
penalized.
I'm sorry. That was in medical school?
No, in rabbinical school. I
never had.
I was in the pastoral something thing practicum at Sloan Kettering, and part of that was to watch open heart surgery. I'm telling you, it was the most fascinating thing.
No, I did not have that experience.
It was absolutely. So you had to go to a scrub nurse, and the scrub nurse's job is to make sure that you remain sterile in the sense of no bacteria. That is, and you're covered in a gown, you're washed up and complete, and you're wearing gloves. And if you so much as scratch your eyebrow, she looks at you and says, "Get out of here and go sterilize yourself again." So you have to be in a sterile or in a state of purity in order to be inside the operating suite. Okay, it's the same idea. Don't get death penalty, but it's the same way. You get punished. Okay, here's that. Then what happens? So when the shofar sounds, that's when you go up. Then Moses goes in, he says, Vayerer Moshe min hahar. Moses comes down, he sanctifies the people, launders the people, verse 15, and he says to the people, be ready for 3 days. Heyu nechonim l'shalosh yamim. Al tikshu isha. Don't touch a woman. And for young people present, close your ears for a second, he's saying, don't have sex. No sex. And it's not derogatory about women, it's just, we want to preserve everybody's state here, their state of their preparedness to receive the commandments. So we just don't want to prolong bathing for days and days and days. We know it's hard for you to refrain from each other, but I'm only asking you to stop dancing with each other for 3 days. After 3 days, you can go have as much sex as you want, okay? But for 3 days, just hold up, because God wants to give you the commandments, and God wants to speak to you, and we just don't want everybody washing and washing and washing forever, okay? That's the state of the law that we are at right now, okay? So the third day comes, right? They're supposed to be ready. Lightning, thunder, there's a cloud, the whole ceremony starting. The kol shofar chazak meod. And the sound of the shofar blasts. What happens? The people were supposed to go up the mountain, but they stay at the side of the mountain. They tremble. They're afraid. Moses tries to bring them out, but they don't come up. Yityatzvu betachtit har. They stay at the bottom of the mountain, and they don't know what to do. So I've gone on for too long. The bottom line here, before and the last remaining stuff is important, but to cut to the chase is, the plan is that they're supposed to be on the mountain, and in the end, that's not what happens. In the end, God says, "Look, Moses, just bring Aaron up. The people, they're too scared, right? They can't handle this. I have to give you the Torah. I have to say this. They'll hear it this way." And my punchline here is, even God's plans in the Torah get messed up. And this happens over and over again. In fact, the whole Torah, I could say, is the plan of God gets messed up by the people, because the people are not exactly what God has in mind, what God thinks they are. God thinks that the people are able and perfect and willing and courageous enough to go into the fire, but they're not. What I derive from this is a little bit of compassion. The people are like you and me, because I don't think I would be able to go inside a quaking, smoking, fiery furnace like the mountain was and say, "Yeah, I'm going in. I'm going in." Most of us probably would think twice about it. We worry about our, asthma or
Well,
whatever.
what's in it for them? What do they think is going to happen?
They
So
don't
I was
know.
struck when you read the verse that God's going to appear in a thick cloud so that the people will hear him. And the reason why the people have to listen to God is because they can't see him in the thick cloud. And I was wondering if perhaps a voice is a better clue to who a person is than seeing their face, because the face doesn't speak, but words need to be spoken for identity.
I think there's that, and there's another thing going on here also, which is the idea. And Jeremy will give me the exact words. Nobody can see the face of God and live.
Well, you're only Adam Bachai.
Lo yirani hadam v'chai. A person can't see God, and so
So
there's protection going on here.
what's interesting, though, is Moses keeps going up the mountain, and I think one can make the argument that he does so he can see God,
Indeed, and this is what
because
makes Moses unique, is that he's probably the only one that it can. But even Moses is shielded by whatever.
He used to see the back of God's head, or as in Midrashic tradition, the knot of the God's tefillin. But I don't know. There's something appealing about what you're saying, and certainly the connection of listen, when you hear the shofar, then you come up the mountain, and then they hear the shofar,
And they don't.
and they don't come. So we have traditionally, I mean, I think Rashi says this, and this is certainly the way I've always said it, well, always understood it, is that the sound of the shofar means that Elvis has left the building, and now this is once again just an ordinary mountain. And I get the way that's maybe a little bit of a distortion of the words, which could be read in the more direct semantic way that you're reading them, and so that's appealing. But here's the parts that are a little less appealing. Uh, after the content of the Ten Commandments, we get the following in verse 15. They witness all the thunder and lightning and the mountain and the shofar and the mountain smoking, and it's very terrifying. And they run away. And they say, Moshe, you tell us, and we will hear or heed or obey what you say. We don't want God to speak us because we're going to die. And then Moses says, don't be afraid, God is doing this to test you. We're hoping that you can be as pious and committed. You won't sin anymore. And here's the part that is the core of my objection to the approach here. And the people stand away at a distance. But Moses goes near the thick darkness where God is. Now, I think that a big part of this story and the narrative art of it, the poetic resonance of it, is for the reasons that you're saying now, whether you can't see God or whatever, to enter into the encounter in the deep, thick darkness, Choshech Hanan ve'arafel, I think that part's in Deuteronomy, darkness, cloud, and darkness. That does not sound to me like, hey, I want everybody to be there. God had said to Moses before, listen, I want you and Aaron to come up, but not the priest. And then in 24, you get a very select number of people, Moses and Aaron, Nadav and Avihu, and X many Kohanim and elders, but not everybody. And so there are too many elements in this story which seem to connote that God is very mysterious, very recondite, not so accessible, and so it doesn't quite fit to me that the original plan is that everybody just charge on up to the front row.
I think God has a very high estimation. God overestimates our capacity, and I think that's what makes God God. God really believes in us. Our problem is that we have difficulty believing in God, but God really believes in us. God really believes that we are capable of receiving these words, and that we are courageous enough, and that we are strong enough, and that God is going to speak to us. Yeah, we're going to go right up the mountain, even if we're going to die of asphyxiation, even if we're going to get asthma attacks, even if it's so difficult, we're going to go there. We'll spend 5 minutes, and then we'll come out of the mountain. Okay, and that's what God thinks of us, and the people are just not there. And I find, there's humor in that for me, but there's also a deep recognition that when the tradition says we all stood at Mount Sinai, it means whatever that means, okay? But it also means some of us were terrified. And you know
But
what?
I think it speaks to, I think, a democratic tradition
Yes,
within the religion. The
absolutely.
reason why we want all the people to be at Mount Sinai is so that the entire people is vested in the same thing. And
100%.
all the things that Jeremy was mentioning about Moses and Aaron, and maybe the Nadav and Abihu and the 70 elders, that's an elitist view, that only the top people can deal with great matters, and everyone else is going to remain on the sidelines.
So I think God's intention is that everybody owns this, and everybody witnesses this. As you said, it's democratic, in the sense that it belongs to everybody. There's such a deep and resonant truth to that. I always make a point of saying this sometimes when I come up with really crazy interpretations. I say, I actually have a license to do this, not because I'm a rabbi, but because I'm a Jew. Torah tzivalana morasha kilat Yaakov. Torah tzivalana Moshe. Morasha kilat Yaakov. Moses, the Torah is given to Moses. It's the inheritance of every Jew. Every single Jew has the right to interpret the Torah. And if you find something that is crazy or different or unique, that's your prerogative. And here, what I'm saying is, I'm not the only one to say it. I'm borrowing some of these ideas from this guy in Israel named Yair Agmon. I don't know who he is. He's a filmmaker, whatever. He wrote a nice book, and this was one of his little paragraphs on this idea. He says, read it carefully, and you see, it's not exactly as you think it is. We have this depiction of Mount Sinai in our face because of who knows what, because of the movie, because of Midrash, because of rabbis like all of us who get up in 4 of our congregations and say, this was the moment. I could just hear them say, the chassid of Moshe, Kal Yisrael, Rabbanu Shalom, God and Israel are getting married. What could be more perfect than Mount Sinai? And you know what? It was a disaster.
Well, that gives our sister religion, it's supersessionist. They don't really believe in divorce, but they believe in one divorce. But you know what I was going to say? In the name of my bat mitzvah girl for this week, Ventura Uziel, her Dvar Torah is quite different from yours, actually, because she notes that Moshe gets her Dvar Torah is about the contrast between Moshe at the burning bush and the people here in the public revelation. Moshe is a private revelation. It's the same place. It's Har Chorev, It's the same place. Sneh is the bush, Sinai is the mountain. Obviously, Sinai is the Sneh mountain. And Moshe gets this private revelation and says, "Oh my God, I too much self-doubt. I'm not up to this." And Ventura says, and that's part of why Moses' success, because he is so humble, he understands the awesomeness of the task. In contrast, the people, seeing the mountain quaking and all the pyrotechnics and all the fireworks, no, Sevenishma, we got this. We are going to manage this, no problem whatsoever. And that's really kind of overconfident because 40 days later, they're worshiping a golden calf. And the humility of Moshe is what confers to him some of the strength to actually follow through, and the comparative,
Arrogance.
arrogance of the people denotes that they don't really even understand that Nasa v'nishma. Jews love to say, "Oh, it's what great faithfulness." Actually, maybe it's what total cluelessness. You don't know what is even before you, and you think this kalalai, I got this, no probs. Actually, you know what? It's going to be a challenge.
Well, you just proved my point, which is that every person, every Jew has the license to interpret this moment, and good for her. Kol hakavod. Say to her this week on Shabbos. Say on behalf of Parsha Talk, we think you did a great job. Look, I think there's a thesis running through this, which is that Mamad Har Sinai doesn't go to plan. I think Yetziat Mitzrayim didn't go to plan. The whole story of Moses on the mountain 40 days, doesn't go to plan.
Right. That idea is embedded in the Torah because God's creation didn't go to plan either, as we find out in the
Exactly.
second chapter of
So
Breshit.
so what does it mean then? And with this we can conclude. What does it mean then that we are the owners of a Torah in which this is about God's plan, and that the world and everything and the Jewish people, it didn't go to God's plan?
No, I think I find this, this is part of the reasons why I like the Lurianic version of Kabbalah is not, my first choice here, but
Your go-to.
the Kabbalistic mindset is pervaded by there is a transcendent, ever present, transcendent and immanent, both within the world and beyond the world, infinite order and goodness, and as it is realized in actual human society with mortal people, with all of their failings, with all of their gashmiut, all their physicality, in addition to their ruchaniut, all their spirituality, it is not going to it's not going to go smoothly. Perfection is in the transcendent realm, and reality, or to say this a kind of a different way, uh, you know, there's what the Kabbalists call the upper unity and the lower unity. The upper unity of just cosmic perfection. God is Hashem Echad throughout the cosmos, but the inner unity, and some of us are idiots, and some of us are mean, and all of us sin. Like that's the reality of living in the lower unity, and Hashem Echad on earth as well, or at least by Yom Hahu, someday Yeh Adonai Echad Ushmo Echad. God will be one, and God's name on earth one. But I find it very appealing to think that there's an incipient perfection unrealized on earth.
So what I would put it in slightly different words, that the reality is we are all deeply flawed, both as individuals and as a people. But what keeps us going is the transcendent hope that Jeremy mentioned, because we believe in our hearts that sometimes that transcendent hope will be triumphant. And that allows us to get up each day, greet the new world, and seek new meaning in the Torah.
I was listening to you and I'm thinking of, and we've talked about some sports metaphors in the past, but there are in I guess in your imagination, my imagination, ideals of perfection in terms of basketball and football. There are people who really elevate they're to an unmatched level, right? When you think about, and Jeremy, I'm just going to turn to you. Name your perfect players, or the people that take basketball to unreachable. You've mentioned it before. I mean, LeBron, Michael
But
Jordan.
what's amazing about this though? Like an awesome baseball player, like the greatest baseball players of all time will make an out 7 out of 10 times,
Okay,
right? Michael Jordan, there was this, it was an ad one time, and Michael Jordan said, I've missed, you know, whatever, 3,000 free throws, and I turned the ball over all these times, and there is no perfection. Uh, it, in some of those like I appreciate the greatness of these sports, gymnastics and ice skating and stuff like that. But when they give people a 10.0, that's a subjective judgment. When Usain Bolt runs a 9.75 or whatever it is that he runs for 100 meters, that's a digital number. When Simone Biles gets a 10, that's a judgment. I appreciate that that's an art, and arts aren't digital. So I don't have to have a digital standard by which Simone Biles gets a 10. She's the best one, and that's good enough. But I'm attracted to feeling that even Michael Jordan missed 3,000 free throws, and Babe Ruth struck out X many times, and Tom Brady threw X many interceptions, and I feel like that's the beauty of
so
it.
where I'm going with this is that there's when you watch professionals, they take the sport to a transcendent level, and then there's the rest of us. When I played hockey, I played with a bunch of 10-year-olds and 11-year-olds. Okay, and there was nothing more exciting for our parents to watch. Nothing more exciting in the universe, except and it was like that's where real life is happening on the rink with a bunch of kids. Okay, what happens in professional is perfection. Okay, and it's a level that is not attainable to anyone. Okay, and what I'm saying here is that perfection that God wants from people is not attainable by us, and I'm good with that. I'm okay with that. I think we all
Right. But I remember going once to a minor league baseball game,
yeah.
and what struck me is
Foul,
that
a foul ball?
what?
That struck
What
me
struck
as
you was a foul ball?
No, Halabai, but that didn't happen. Is that you appreciate the major leagues even more when you watch a minor league game, because in the minor league, nothing is routine. And what we forget is that major league sports, things happen regularly at a very high level that we take it for granted.
yeah.
And it was a AAA baseball game, so some of the people could have been in the majors, and some of the people belonged in Double A, the division below the AAA. And so there's a wide gap between the players on the field. And that doesn't happen in quite the same way in professional sports. Even though we acknowledge that some players are far superior to others, they're much closer to each other than they are to the people in the next lower
There's
division lower down.
there's a guy. He had a long NBA career, mostly on the bench, named Brian Scalabrine, and who's Celtic, and there's these videos that went around, which he just loves to play the game. And anyway, the sort of text of the videos is Brian Scalabrine. He's a little bit of a lifelong end of the bench guy. He had a long NBA career, but he was really always the 11th, 12th guy on the team. And the upshot of the videos and all these professionals saying, Brian Scalabrine is much, much closer to LeBron than you are to Brian Scalabrine. This guy, he's an NBA player, okay? You
Right.
think he's bad? He's one of the 1,000 best players in the entire
And
universe.
and that's the point. The point is that Moses and Aaron get to go up the mountain. The rest of us, Nebuch, we're huddled in a corner at the foothills, scared out of our minds, and that's
But we're
okay. Right?
also we're also we're also we're huddled in the Beit Midrash, and
Indeed,
that's a great place to be. Man,
a
I was so lucky.
100%. And you know what? We get a lot of joy out of that, and that's great. It's great to have that joy. And that's where we'll conclude. First of all, we want to thank the people watching and listening to us. And we hope that we were able to share our joy with you as you share your joy with each other on studying and learning from us and with the people that you love in your communities and your families. We hope that you have a great Shabbat and that you have a blessed and peaceful week ahead. And that's it. We'll see you next week on the next edition of Parasha Talk. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.